Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a senior and accomplished professional and a coach from the UK, Claire Norman. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here with you
Thank you.
and with your listeners.
Thank you. Claire is the founder of Claire Norman Coaching Associates. She's an author, and all of you know I'm very partial to authors. She's an author of a book titled Cultivating Coachability, and her earlier books are The Transformational Coach and Mentor Coaching, a Practical Guide. So, Claire, my first question for you. You've been a coach, a master certified coach for over 25 years. How has coaching evolved? And what are some of the core principles that guide you today?
Yeah. So the core principles in my practice today are quite different from when I started 25 years ago.
Hmm.
And so I would say that one of them is around the paradoxical nature of change. So it's
Mhm.
a theory by Beiser, where we sit with what is going on for the other person
Hmm.
today rather than a striving for action.
Hmm.
So it's understanding the other person that I'm working with, them helping them to understand themselves
Hmm.
deeper, um, more meaningfully,
Hmm.
and in them understanding themselves, paradoxically, change will happen
Hmm.
without them needing to strive.
Hmm.
So this is something I've come across myself, experienced um, myself only in the last year or so, and now integrating it into my coaching. So there's just something beautiful about it being so very natural without pushing for things to happen.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things that guides me today. And the other thing that guides me today is love
Hmm.
and giving full attention to the other person that I am working with. Uh, so we have this expression in coaching that the other person is creative, resourceful, and whole.
Hmm.
And this comes from Whitworth and um, associates from a book that they wrote. Um, And so I really do believe that the people that I'm working with are creative, resourceful, and whole,
Mhm.
even if they don't believe it for themselves.
Right.
And I'm, I'm bringing as much love into that relationship as I can.
Hmm.
A form of love, it might be called agape love. Um, it's not romantic love or
Hmm.
anything like that,
Yeah.
but it's more about love for my fellow human beings and really loving who this person is, as opposed to trying to fix them or help them to be something else,
Yeah.
loving them as they are and giving them full attention as they are
Very
right
interesting.
here, right now. So those are two things that are um, guiding my coaching today that are relatively new
Hmm.
for me. They've developed and developed and developed over the course of those 25 years. And
Hmm. Amazing. Thank you. Your work also emphasizes transformational coaching. How
yes,
do you define this term and how does it differ from other coaching approaches?
yeah. Uh, so transformational coaching, I would say, is about a person's being rather than their doing. So much like I was saying there already. Um, who are they? Who are they to the world?
Hmm.
What kind of a leader do they want to be rather than what do they want to do? So, transformational coaching is very different from performance coaching. And I would say 25 years ago, and probably for about 10 years after that, I was very much a performance coach,
Hmm.
helping people to be better at tasks and actions and achieving. And that was partly a symptom of me being in the corporate world. And that, of course, is what the corporate world is expecting, is higher performance all the time.
Mm.
And I now believe that that higher performance will come if we focus on the person, the unique person
Right.
who is inside that shell of a body, and helping them to be the person they were meant to be in the world.
Mm.
So that's what I would say is the difference between transformational coaching and performance coaching, for
Mm.
example.
Mm.
Um,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Fascinating. Claire, let's not now talk about your book, Cultivating Coachability. Before I ask you a question, I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Claire Norman's book, Cultivating Coachability. I'm going to do the same. So let me ask you my first question regarding your book. How do you define coachability, and why is it crucial for the coaching process today?
Yeah. So coachability is a word that coaches have been using for many, many years, and yet it's kind of a little bit, hard to lay our hands on what it really means. But I've figured out that there are actually two parts of it. There's coaching readiness. So is this person actually ready for coaching in the first place?
Mm.
And then there's coachability once they get into coaching. How can we build their coachability?
Mm.
So if I start with so coachability itself is about how well they think for themselves, how well they sense for themselves, and how the coach can draw that thinking out of them.
Mm.
So our job as coaches is to build their thinking muscles, build their sensing muscles,
Mm.
build their own wisdom
Mhm.
and knowing. And that's what coachability is.
Mm.
Coaching readiness, though, is really important for us to check that before we even start working with a person.
Mm.
So, is coaching the right intervention
Mm.
for whatever it is that they want to bring?
Mhm.
Because there are many times that coaching isn't the right intervention. And it seems like it's currently being treated as the panacea for everything, and it
Mhm.
really isn't.
Right.
Sometimes a performance conversation is more useful, or a training course is more useful, or therapy is more useful. So we need to figure that out.
Mm.
Is coaching the right intervention? And then is this person willing to do the hard work of thinking and sensing and feeling for themselves?
Mm.
Are they motivated to do this work in
Mm.
coaching? Because the coach is not going to do that for them. That is not our job, to
Right.
join the dots and do the
Yes.
thinking.
Yes.
Uh, Very different from a mentor who might offer advice. We're there to ask questions to help the individual. So are they coaching ready?
Mm.
And if they're part of an organization, do they have the support that they need from their line manager? Because the coach isn't with them all of the time. So they need that support inside of the organization
Mm.
as well.
Well said. You also talk about the shift in responsibility for value creation from the
Yes.
coach to the thinker. As I, in your book, tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah. So often coaches take too much responsibility
Mm.
for adding value. And actually, the value that we add is in building the thinker's thinking
Mm.
muscle.
Mm.
Um, so that's us passing that responsibility for thinking over to them
Mm.
so that they can create value for themselves. And although I call them the thinker, it's not the perfect word, because thinker suggests that it's all going on in their head and
Mm.
it's cerebral and logical and rational. But actually, there's so much that we can access from the body. I
Mm.
just haven't quite found a better word than thinker yet. But when
Mm.
I talk about
Mm.
building their thinking muscles, I'm talking about them um, figuring stuff out for themselves so that they can become independent critical thinkers and sensors and intuitors, even without their coach.
Wow. What a great response. And my next question, Claire, is what are the common myths about coachability that you address in your book?
Oh, yeah, well, one myth would be around whether everyone is coachable or not. I believe everybody could benefit from coaching if they are coaching ready. So it's the coaching readiness that needs to be in place rather than coachability. I think we can draw out that coachability if they are motivated to want to think for themselves and to make changes in their own life. So that would be one big myth that we need to bust. Then another myth to bust is that the coach holds all the responsibility for making this successful.
Right.
And we've already alluded there that it takes two in the partnership, the coach, the thinker, but it also takes, if their organization is paying for the coaching, it also takes work from the organization to set this up well. And this is something that I think we've lost over the past 15, 20 years, where corporates are taking shortcuts in believing that, coaching is the panacea. So let's just throw it over to the coach. Coach and thinker can start working together. When actually the coaching custodian, as I call them, in the organization, needs to set this up well for success in the first place. So the coach doesn't hold all of the power. That's not really the right word.
Cards in their hands.
Yes, exactly. It's a systemic process.
Absolutely.
Much like any other learning and development intervention or any other business process. Want to understand whether coaching is the right fit at the right time with the right person or people, the right match. And this is what the coaching custodian's role is all about, making sure that they do all of that. So that's another one of the myths.
Thank you. So I'm going to now talk a little bit more about coachability. And as I was preparing, I said there are two perspectives of coachability. One is from the perspective of the employer, and the other is from the perspective of the coach.
Yes.
So my first question is, how can organizations screen for coachability when selecting individuals to be coached?
Yeah, great question. So this is where the coaching custodian comes in. And so their role is, let's say they're approached by an individual themselves who's asking for coaching. Or perhaps it's the line manager of the individual who says, I want to give this person some coaching. Can you sort that out, please? And so the coaching custodian needs to have good quality conversations with the individual, with the line manager, about what is the need here and what is going to be our measure of success once we have addressed this need. Just the same as you would do with any other business process. What is the problem we're trying to solve?
Right.
Not that I equate people with problems, but what is it here that suggests that something is necessary? And then having had those interviews, those conversations, the coaching custodian can then decide whether actually this is coaching that is the right intervention, or have the individual or the line manager just gone straight there and jumped over all these other possible interventions.
Hmm.
So is this the right intervention? Also, is it the right time for the individual? Is it the right time for the organization? Because there
Hmm.
might be stuff that the coaching custodian knows
Right.
is about to happen in the organization, some big change, let's say. Um, so is this the right time? Um, is the individual motivated? So all of this is all part of the screening process
Hmm.
that to happen before the coach even gets involved.
Yeah.
That's what the coaching custodian is there for. Now,
Hmm.
this role doesn't exist in isolation as a,
Hmm.
nobody calls themselves a coaching custodian. It's not a
Hmm.
job title.
Yeah.
It might be part of a head of coaching's role if the organization is big
Yeah.
enough to have a head of coaching.
Hmm.
Most organizations don't have a head of coaching,
Yeah.
but perhaps it would fall into the lap of the HR lead or the learning and development lead or the OD lead or
Hmm. Hmm.
any one of these
Yeah.
people professionals
Hmm.
might have responsibility for the success of coaching.
Hmm.
And so it's their role to do this screening really well.
Well said. And the other perspective I wanted to get from you is from that of a coach. What are some common signs that a client is not ready for coaching, and how should a coach address this?
Yeah. So signs would be, for example, that they keep um, cancelling
Hmm.
this first exploratory meeting with
Hmm.
the coach. So other things are taking precedence for them. They're putting other things first. They're not thinking about
Hmm.
uh, their needs. They're squashing their own needs to the bottom of the pile.
Hmm.
That might be one. Although, of course, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes for that individual as to
Hmm.
why they are continually cancelling, but it may be a sign or signal.
Yeah.
Um, they could come to this initial meeting and kind of be resistant, let's say, to
Hmm.
um, perhaps they don't have any specific goals in mind.
Yeah.
Now, they might not know exactly what their goal is. And of course, coaching can help them to figure out what their goal is, but
Hmm.
they need to have something in mind
Hmm.
to work on. So, maybe there's a sign there if they just don't know what it is they want to work on.
Hmm.
Or maybe there's some kind of um, reticence in answering questions that the coach
Hmm.
is posing. I mean, there's a whole slew of things around um, where whether this is whether this is the right intervention, right
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right person. Are they motivated? Do they understand what it means to
Hmm.
be in a coaching relationship and what's
Hmm.
expected of
Hmm.
them? So yeah, there's lots of other signals that I talk about in the book. Um, But what was your second question was, and how does the coach deal
Handle. How do
handle
they
that?
handle whether the person is not yet ready for coaching?
Yeah, so this is this is where we um, need to hold this love for the person who's with us.
Hmm.
That it's we can't make them wrong or inadequate or feel ashamed that they're not ready for coaching,
Hmm.
but we can have an adult to adult conversation with them
Yeah.
about perhaps this isn't the right intervention at this time.
Hmm.
We could potentially triage that. So if it feels like it's something other than coaching that could be useful, then we would do some triage. We would ask them questions to help them to figure out what might be a better fit for
Hmm.
them at this time. We it becomes even more tricky if the organization has put them forward for coaching
Hmm.
because then there may potentially be even more shame if if we say to the organization, this person is not coaching ready,
Right.
um, and what then happens in that conversation between individual and their organization. So we need to agree with the individual how we will feed that back to the organization, about it either being not the right time, not the right intervention,
Yeah.
not whatever it is, but we agree together what that feedback is to the
Mm.
organization.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And what would your perspective be on how a client's personal context impacts the coachability of the client?
Oh, yeah. So coaching works really well in the eye of the storm, as
Mm.
a metaphor. So
Yeah.
if there is a lot going on for them,
Mm.
this could be the perfect opportunity for
Mm.
them to create some space and thinking time
Yeah.
to come to coaching. So yes, if they've got lots of other stuff going on in their life, work life and or home life, this is a good time to have coaching potentially.
Mm.
Um, so, for example, I was working with a senior leader one time, and he came to a session and he said, um, "Claire, the thing that's really front of my mind at the moment is that my wife has asked for a divorce. I need us, if it's okay, can I bring that to coaching? Because I need to get through this. I need to understand how I'm going to, accept this and work with it, etc. in order that I can get back into, get my head back into the work game."
Mm.
And so, as far as I'm concerned, we are all whole human beings. And so, working with that home trauma with a small t, it might have been a big T, but in his case, it was a small t. Um, that's what was necessary at the time in that coaching session to enable him to free up his thinking.
Mm. Amazing.
Uh, so yes, personal life is all part and parcel of. Now, different coaches have different ways of seeing that. So I know that some coaches will only coach on the work related stuff because
Hmm.
that's what the organization is paying for.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about us contracting with the organization
Mm.
to check,
Yeah.
um, here's what I believe about coaching. I
Mm.
believe we are whole human beings. We need to work on
Yeah.
what's going on for them outside of work just as much as inside. So
Correct.
therefore, are you, Mr., Mrs. Organization, happy for us to proceed on that basis?
Mm.
Um, and that's where the coaching custodian, they'll do a screening of the coaching pool that they choose. And
Mm.
if my beliefs don't align with their beliefs around, perhaps they're an organization that only wants coaching to focus on work
Mm.
and not home,
Mm.
then I'm not going to be a good fit coach for them
Mm.
because I will bring, I, I will say to the people I work with, bring whatever is going to be supportive of
Yeah.
you as a human being.
Absolutely. Great response. I have time for one more question, Claire.
Yeah.
And this question is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. What is the one message you hope readers of your book carry or take away?
Yeah. So the book is written for coaches.
Mm.
So I'm sure in amongst your thousands of listeners, you have plenty of coaches in the
I'm
mix.
sure we do. Yeah.
So for them, I would say the key message is to claim your agency. And now that can also transpose into every one of your listeners to claim your agency. And this is the one of the things that I really truly believe in is all of us feeling as though we have agency. That and what I mean by that is that we have a voice and that our voice needs to be heard,
Mm.
And we need to stand up for, stand up for love, stand up for humanity. But essentially, my key message is claim your agency.
Amazing. And on that note, Claire, and your powerful message, claim your agency, and you really explained your voice needs to be heard. And what I understood was, while you talk of love, I also heard that, do not be afraid to speak what your beliefs are.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claire, for speaking to me about your own amazing journey as a master certified coach. Thank you for explaining to me what is transformational coaching. You covered this in one of your earlier books. We had a very interesting conversation on cultivating coachability. What does it mean to be coachable? How do organizations determine who's coachable? And how does a coach determine whether the coachee is coachable or not? You also talked to me about some of the common signs, about considerations, that can impact when the personal context is different from what you have understood. And finally, your very powerful message of claim your agency.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.